My name is Marc Mahoney, General Manager, Mortgage Alliance, Shoreline Mortgages. Here today to talk a little bit about credit, essentially what it is, how it works, and how you can affect it. It's important to understand credit as a snapshot. It's essentially a look at what's going on over the last little while in your credit and financial activity as reported by the creditors that you use. Essentially, every creditor that holds a line of credit or credit card loan for you will report to a central credit bureau on a regular basis, usually monthly, with the information as to how you've repaid, what kind of balances you've carried, and any other pertinent information. The credit bureau then, when it has a request from a creditor or lender, will generate a score and a report that will outline that information. The creditors can then use that to adjudicate or underwrite whatever it is that they're looking at for you and essentially decide what they want to lend to you and on what terms. Thus, it's important to make sure that your credit bureau reflects things well, such that any new credit that you look for will review you well. In order to do so, you have to understand what the credit rating is composed of. It's a numerical number, it's 3 digits, and is essentially a grade of what your score has been. The most important factor that goes into compiling that grade is whether or not you've had any arrears in the past. So whether you've reported late payments, whether you've had any collections or judgments against you, or any bankruptcies. So essentially the first step and the most important method in making sure that you've got a good credit rating is to pay your bills and pay them on time. Secondly, it's important to understand that carrying high balances on revolving credit, that is credit cards, lines of credits, or anything that goes up and down in terms of the balance, or having balances that are close to the limit or worse above the limit will very negatively reflect on your credit score. Then when the credit is graded, it'll come up poorly. Also, you want to have a good mix of credit. It's generally accepted that to best utilize your credit, you should have one Visa, one MasterCard, and one personal loan. You don't want to have too much, and you don't want to have too little. They want to see you as active and reliable, but not as overactive and therefore being a flag for risk. One of the other areas that contributes to the credit score is the number of inquiries or the number of hits on your credit bureau. It's one of the aspects that people do talk about often, and while it is important, it's not as important as making sure that your bills are paid on time and your balances are manageable. Essentially, every time somebody asks about your credit, it appears as a hit or an inquiry. Too many of those hits or inquiries, and it's generally seen again as a sign of risk. So make sure that when somebody is looking at your credit, it's for a good reason, it's somebody you trust, and that they're not doing so any more than need be. For example, when shopping for a mortgage, it's very good idea to go and speak with a good broker who can pull one credit bureau and use it with a number of lenders rather than going to every bank on the block and having multiple inquiries on your credit. So again, to recap, what you can do, make sure you pay your bills and pay them on time. That means if you have minimum payments on credit cards, making sure the minimum is paid every single month. If you've got a minimum payment of $30, don't say you're going to carry it over till next month and pay $60. That will report as a late payment. Also make sure that the balances are minimal, ideally at 0. The further away from the limits the balances are, the more positively it will reflect on your credit score. Make sure you don't have any unnecessary inquiries. You're expected to have some. If there's a good reason, go ahead and do it. But don't do so any more than need be. If you get turned down by one creditor, before you have another one look at it, consider whether or not they're going to look at things any differently. If their criteria aren't materially different, then it's probably a good idea to figure out what the problem is and resolve it, rather than just applying wantonly. The extra applications or inquiries will only make it even more difficult to get the credit that you need. Again, don't keep too much credit. Make sure you've got a reasonable portfolio. Older credit is more helpful. If you've got old credit cards, they're more valuable to you in terms of building your credit than newer ones are. Lenders want to see establishment, they want to see reliability, they want to see security. They don't want to see risk. If you have any questions in terms of how your credit score works, or in terms of how you can make it better, or determining what it is and how that will affect you, please feel free to contact me. You can do so at mmahoney@mortgagealliance.com. Every credit score is different, every individual is different, and we want to make sure that you're looked at, importantly, as you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and otherwise have a great day.